Okay, we'll call the meeting to order for the City of Saratoga Springs, Tuesday, August 9th, 2022 at 6:02 p.m. Present tonight, we have Councilman Carn, Councilman Wilden, Councilman McComber, Councilman Podeska, and participating electronically is Councilman Porter. So we do have a quorum this evening. I've asked Councilman Wilden to lead us in our invocation and Sergeant Dalton to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful this day, and we're grateful for the opportunity to be gathered as leaders in this community and talk about things that can be for the betterment of all those who live within the city. And we ask Thee to bless us, so we'll be able to have a good discussion, make good decisions, and we ask Thee to bless those in the military and our first responders, that they can do what they need to do in safety. And these things we say in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please rise. Repeat the pledge after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. We have a great opportunity tonight with our police department tonight. I'd like to read a letter that was addressed to Chief Andrew Burton in the Saratoga Springs Police Department. Chief Burton, please be advised that the Utah Chiefs of Police Association Board of Directors has approved your completion and certification of the Utah Accreditation Alliance process effective July 19th, 2022 through August 1st, 2027. On behalf of Chief Walentine, myself, and the association, we congratulate you and your department for the efforts in completing the accreditation process. The accreditation of your department is a great example to other law enforcement agencies within the state who are seeking to accredit their departments with the expectation of enhancing their professional status. This letter serves as your official notification and status as a Utah accredited agency and is effective as per the dates listed above. I'd like to say thank you to our police department. I know this is an accomplishment, and turn some time over to Chief Burton.
Mayor, Council, pleasure to be with you as always. Just a couple of notes before I turn it over to Chief Bishop. About 3 years ago, we decided that we'd like to go through the accreditation process. And I assigned the Assistant Chief of Police, Bill Robertson, the task of getting that accomplished. And while there were a lot of members of the police department that performed small tasks along the way, Chief Robertson built a team of some of our staff members that I'll introduce to you a little bit later. And this team has worked the last 3 years. We had a little bit of a delay during COVID. Yeah. And but anyway, the last few years they've worked hard to put this together. We're one of 21 agencies in the state that are accredited out of 109 agencies that the Chiefs of Police Association has as its membership that they perform accreditation for. So at this point, less than 20% of the agencies are accredited. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Vice President of the Utah Chiefs of Police Association. He's the Vice President for Region 2, which includes our city, and that's Chief Brad Bishop. He is the Chief of Police in Payson. So, Brad.
Thanks, Chief. Mayor, City Council, I appreciate the opportunity to represent the Chiefs Association to have the honor to present the accreditation to Chief Burton and his staff. I know they've worked diligently over the past several years, as many agencies have. As Chief Burton took the wind out of my sails, gave you all the stats, so I won't have to go over that. And the mayor told me I only got 20 seconds, so. I'd just like to congratulate them. It's a big honor for your city, for the Chiefs Association, for the department. It shows the dedication and the professionalism that they bring to your community, your residents. and those that visit your community. So on behalf of myself and the Chiefs Association, I congratulate Chief Burton and his staff. So thank you.
So how about that? They gave us this plaque. And that's going to hang proudly in the police department building, someplace very prominent. So thank you, Chief Bishop. As I mentioned, we wanted to take a minute and introduce the members of the primary team that helped us reach this goal. And so I'd like to ask them to stand up here as I call their name. First of all is the Assistant Chief, Bill Robertson. And members of his team that he got together included Records Clerk Donna Moreau, Records Clerk Madison Black or Madison Monson, depending on whether she's using her married name, and our victim advocate, Michelle Eaton Berry. So I'd like them to stand here for a moment, and what we have is a recognition from the police department for the work. I'll just read one of the certificates so that we can try to keep to the manager's schedule. The Saratoga Springs Police Department, this is to certify that the Chief of Police of the Saratoga Springs Police Department has awarded the Chief's Star Medal to Bill Robertson, Donna Moreau, Madison Black, and Michelle Eaton Berry for exceptionally meritorious service. Their outstanding dedication to duty contributed to the overwhelming success of the police department's accreditation. Their actions have reflected great credit upon themselves, the Saratoga Springs Police Department, and the cities of Saratoga Springs and Bluffdale, Utah. 1 January 2021 to 9 August 2022, which is the approximate time in which the team has been working on. Given under my hand the 9th day of August 2022 in the city of Saratoga Springs, Utah, signed Chief of Police. And it's this, this is the award.
If we can have everybody come up here for like better pictures as well as.
Let me have you take your certificate with you, Donna. Then we'll get some pictures. Nice.
Good job.
I'm just worried about tripping on Andy.
What?
GG two.
Okay.
Well done. No, appreciate it.
I was trying to reach too far. We couldn't reach.
If it's okay, Mayor, the police department staff would like to be excused.
Yep.
I'll be remaining for just a minute until you get past the department reporting in case there's any questions.
Chief, we'll just ask really quick so you can go. Any
Do you guys
questions?
have any questions for Chief from the packet, you guys? On the.
No, not on,
Okay.
nope, not on that.
Go enjoy.
We did talk with the chief, though. He's gonna do his graphs the same as all the other departments on the next round. So that'll be consistent.
I had questions that I asked before the meeting.
So it'll be
Okay.
consistent. We had that conversation as part of his annual review, and he's more than happy to do that.
Okay. We have public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments for subject matter not listed on the agenda. If we don't have any public hearings tonight, So please be respectful in your comments. Please avoid repetitive comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and please state your name and address for the record. Is anybody here for public input this evening? If you'd come up to the podium and state your name and address.
My name is Debbie Ring. I reside at 927 West Joshua Drive, Saratoga Springs. And I appreciate the opportunity to address you, Mayor and council members. I did want to address the bond for a rec center and wanted to express my concern that while I would love a rec center, I would love a splash pad, I would love a cemetery, I would love a larger library, I am concerned that perhaps this is not the time. And my concerns are basically twofold. One, that I think that the public, as a public resident, I don't think that I've been given all the information. So in researching this a little bit more, I have found that there are some things that are concerning to me, such as the original estimate of the cost has already increased. I am told, it's my understanding that it is currently at about 70 million, but expected to rise probably well above 100 million, which would bring our taxes, not just our city taxes, up to 200 over what they currently are, but well probably above 400 where they currently are. This is concerning for several reasons. Not would it be just the cost of the construction of the rec center, but it also would be the maintenance. It's my understanding that while Provo, 19% of the residents use their rec center, and they state that the costs are covered by the user fees and such, that they're not being completely transparent, as things such as landscaping and computer costs are not, that the rec center uses are actually not being paid from the rec center budgets. It's my understanding that Lehigh, that 85% of its operating costs are covered through the fees that they receive. In American Fork, I'm told that that's only 66% of the operating costs are covered. So where the deficits are, they're made up in other portions of the city budget, which is concerning because then it's taking from other things. I'm also concerned that here in the recent past, we've experienced exploding construction costs. And so our projections right now may just be a mere, part of what the construction costs would end up being. My second area of concern is what the residents are experiencing currently. While I know that there was a survey that went around, and it appears that I think it was 66% of the people supported a rec center, I do understand that perhaps not all of those who participated in that survey were verified to be actual city residents. So there is some question on whether or not those were actual residents that responded. Also, again, is that my 3 minutes? Oh, wow. Can I extend a little?
Yes.
Thank you. And let me go back to where I was. I apologize.
Not all residents, there you are.
Yeah, not all residents. And then also that, again, that the residents may not have been really aware of these other issues about the total cost that it could be, and also the operating costs are generally in the area are not being covered by the facilities. We have experienced, exploding gas prices. Basically 2 years ago, January, the national average for gas prices was $2.38 a gallon. We know where we are now. We're almost double that. Food prices have been increasing. Currently, May of 2022 was over 10%, 10.4% nationally above what May of 2021 was. So our residents are really experiencing some increases to their bills. We have an average median income of Saratoga Springs residents of $107,000, $107,000 per year. And I just think that perhaps this is not the time, that I would encourage us to be prudent and look not just in what it is that we would like, but also, is this the right time? And I don't think this is the right time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
2.5 minutes.
Wow. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Leah Hansen. I'm a constituent here, and I also have Saratoga page. I just want to ask and plead that you guys table the resolution, at least number 2, the resolution number 2 regarding the bond, basically because of all that she said. So in closing, I'd also like to ask that you would also reconsider perhaps tabling number 1 as well. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Were there any comments sent in, Owen? Okay. Then I will close the public input at this time. We will move on to reports. Are there any reports from the council? Councilman McComber?
Just wanted to, on the record, we had a great meeting with the principals and assistant principals today from the city. We had a great representation. I was really impressed with how many showed up. And we were able to talk about the growth in the different areas. They were also able to talk about some of their concerns, safe walking routes, et cetera, crossing guards. So I thought it was a good use of time and making sure that we're staying connected with one of the most important parts of our city is our educating of our children. So just wanted to point that out and thank them and all those who put the effort into making that happen.
Councilman Carn?
A few weeks ago, we had the first meeting of the Utah Lake Authority. So we are officially a recognized state authority at this point. At the same time, we are also meeting as the Utah Lake Commission while we wind one down and spin one up. So it's going to take a while to, we got to close one entity out, right, and then open the new one. We're working on bylaws and kind of how we operate. We're working on doing an RFP to create what our general plan will be around the lake and identifying the map that the ULA encompasses. So that started. We'll be meeting every other month for a while and then probably go into a quarterly cadence after that.
You've already started on the island, right?
Right.
Wasn't it you who said it's a good thing he's doing it because he doesn't have a regular job?
I think that was Wilden said that. Those of us who have regular jobs, yeah.
Thank you. I just want to add to it, Councilman Carn worked hard. We worked hard to try to get onto the leadership, but it was a tough stack deck. Is that to say fair? So we're glad we have him representing us. Mark, anything from administration?
Yes, I do. If I could give just a couple quick updates for you. First and foremost, I wanted to give an update on the 2 road projects that are taking place. I know we're all very anxious to see Pony and Redwood as well as Foothill and Pony be completed. The projected completion of Foothill and Pony is, and specifically the corner of 400 North and Foothill. Rocky Mountain Power placed the power pole today. They are looking to do the pavement on Wednesday and Thursday and striping as well. And so we anticipate an early opening Friday, maybe end of day if necessary. So we are looking and hopeful that it is going to, this week, yes.
So
2 weeks.
6 months and 2 weeks.
Yes. So then the Redwood Pony, the update for Redwood and Pony, we anticipate paving on Wednesday. Yes, and we anticipate that we'll have the signal connections. We're going to be doing some ADA ramps being poured Thursday, striping Thursday night, with a hopeful opening of that on Friday.
Because there's a lot of curbing missing still.
There's some elements and stuff to that, but again, we're kind of to that point where things are going to come together real quick, and the contractor knows that we are pushing very, very hard to have that completed for next week. So everything goes right, we'll be there. And because I did that, we just called a no-hitter, and there'll be a monsoon storm tonight, so. Another quick update, I just got updated financials, and we owe about 736 on the contract that's outstanding. So that'll probably be taken care of within about the next probably 4 to 6 months on the outset. So I'm pretty excited about that. Quick, the Lake Mountain Mutual contract, which is kind of a big one for us. The other thing that I want to just give a quick update on is we have a part that should arrive this Friday, and we are trying to get the well contractor for the Jacobs Ranch well lined up so that they can begin the install with that part coming. It's a part that goes on the pump, which is the very bottom of the column, so we can't install it until then. But the other parts have arrived. We're just waiting for this final part, which hopefully will let us start putting the well in this weekend, early next week, depending on when we can get the well company out. But hopefully by probably mid next week, we should have water for Jacobs Ranch well back online. So
is that contractor teed up to work over the weekend?
we are trying to see if we can do that. Obviously, they're jumping back and forth between jobs,
Yeah.
but they know this is a high priority and they've got us on. So we're anxious for that. So hopefully my next council meeting next Tuesday, we can give you a little bit more of an update on that. So, but we're hopeful that that's going to happen. There was a meeting today with the canal companies, and as of August 1st, all secondary water rights in Utah Lake were extinguished or used for the year. And so we're now down into primary storage. Again, just as a quick reminder, we do have primary storage water rights that we are going to continue to pump from the Marina Pump Station. We'll continue to do that until the lake levels go below that, that secondary storage level that we're at currently. But we believe we're going to be able to make that through next week when Jacobs Ranch gets online. So we're in a good spot. Hopefully, we can continue to pump through the end of the summer from the marina. So that's good news. Once Jacobs is back online, we should be in a good spot. The canal companies met earlier today, and because of some agreements that are in place between the canals, we're getting Provo water right now through the ULDC canal, which is going to last until primary rights are used up. So we're anxious for that. New information that came, but ULDC, which is secondary, is being serviced right now with primary water rights from another water source. And that will continue as long as those water rights are available. So
Just to confirm, this doesn't mean that we can go back to 100%. This is,
until we know.
we're good with our new system.
Once the well's back up, then there may be the opportunity for us to have a conversation about, does this allow us to maybe go up from 80 to 90%
90.
or something like that? Because we're still in the drought condition. But again, until that well is pumping and until we see what the yield is on that pump,
Yep.
we're still in kind of the critical conditions, but the conditions are changing. We'll have more of an update for you next week.
And residents have, the water usage, from what I heard, we've been
Water usage is
stepping up and doing a good job reducing their water usage.
Yes, it is. We've gotten some complaints about water pressure at the tops of water zones being down because of, again, the way that we've had to balance the system with the restrictions or the limitations on current well being down in the Jacobs Ranch well. So again, it's going well. And we hope that once the well gets back online, we can open up those pressure valves again to get some of those top of the zone pressures up again. But it's going well for that particular
Would
project.
it be possible on that Tuesday to get numbers to show how much we have saved?
We will jump into that, and we'll try and get some numbers crunched out of that system as far as water consumption goes. But right now, it does look like water use is down. If you listen to Central Utah, they were lamenting that cities weren't using their water contracts up. So
They were, yeah.
that's not our problem.
They kept saying, we have plenty of water.
Yeah, that's not our problem, but
Not what the governor says.
again, if things go well with these water, the primary water, secondary water rights and things, we should be able to make it through the end of the summer using, continuing to use all of our water rights. And so long as the well comes up, hopefully we can look at a conversation with you in the coming weeks about, maybe being able to put that allotment back up to, maybe that 90.
What's the color? Yellow, I think, or something?
Yeah, we'd go up into the 90% allotment.
We're red now.
We're
Take it to orange.
Yeah, we're in the 80%, but we're hopeful, and so we'll just kind of see what happens over the next week.
Can we make those changes mid-billing cycle? Or is it best to do it at billing cycle? I don't want to throw our system.
I'll answer that next Tuesday, how's that?
So what I'd like to see, if it's possible, is just to look at our July 25th to August 25th usage compared to last year to see if we've seen a big reduction.
And again, we will see. We are still.
If we can get that number, yeah.
You bet. And we are still supplementing the system right now with drinking water. So there is some supplementing happening to try and, balance out the system. But again,
Is that a citywide, or is it in certain areas, or
what's that?
supplementing with culinary?
Just in certain areas.
Okay.
And typically it's the areas with low pressure or that are kind of end of the line, type scenarios and stuff. So, but anyway, that's the report that we wanted to give you for this evening. Thanks, Mayor and Council.
Perfect, thank you. Were there any questions for fire and EMS?
Nope.
Okay. I will entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
I move to approve consent items as posted on the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Carn, a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion? Councilman Podeska? Aye. McComber?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Motion passes. Business item 1, a resolution providing for a special tax election to be held on November 8, 2022.
Mayor and council, this item is the discussion of putting the option of a RAP tax on the ballot for this upcoming election. It could be used for any of the items listed here. They're recreation, arts, parks, zoos, those types of things. Again, generally, most of the cities in Utah County are charging this.
Our neighbors are.
Where we are now a regional draw, this is one of those interesting ways that if we do put this, it's 0.1%. If we put this in place, then, and essentially we'd be able to, have some of the surrounding neighbors in Eagle Mountain and West Lehigh and things help generate additional revenues for some of the parks and other things here in our community. We would be paying that as well, but this is something that most of the cities have enacted in Utah County. If you recall, we reached out to Utah County to have them, because they could elect to do it, or if they choose not to elect it, then we could elect to do it. So this would put that on the ballot for that. It would, establish public hearing times of October 4th, 2022 at 6 o'clock for a public hearing, and then that public hearing would then, continue with it, being voted on at the general election in November. So I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
October, what day?
October 4th.
So right before ballots get mailed.
You have to do it,
Yeah.
about 30 days before the election.
Well, but ballots get mailed mid-October, so it's still before that. I just wanted to make sure it happened before ballots.
Sure, and again, that's the procedural steps. And again, similar type of an issue for the next item, which would be, this is, putting it on the ballot and then creating that public notice for that public hearing.
Okay, Councilman Carn?
So my only question that actually came up today talking to someone was, is this dedicating 0.1% that's already being charged, or is it a new 0.1%?
It's a new 0.1%.
Okay.
And it is restricted in that it can only be used in these areas, and it would be controlled by the council as to how you would like to account for those funds and how you would like to use those funds. Could be used for, all kinds of different
Right.
things. We think it will begin generating, because if we did put it in place, it would begin in January 1st. And so we'd only get a partial year this year, then a full year for thereafter. It would last for 10 years, and then it'd have to be reapproved by the voters every 10 years thereafter. So again, we will be accountable, to make sure those funds are spent wisely to the community's needs.
Okay, so two ifs. If it gets approved to go on the ballot, and if the voters approve it, do we have an idea of what kind of revenue that generates?
Early estimations were, I believe, around $500,000, if I remember.
And that's with current, not with all the new stuff coming.
That's with the new stuff coming online.
Right.
All the new business coming online, this is something that would grow, but we would anticipate probably, $500,000 to.
So basically, anybody who shops in Saratoga Springs would be helping fund our parks.
Potentially, yeah. Yep. And it's parks, it's, there's all kinds of things.
I don't think
that
we're starting
fall
a
for that.
zoo anytime soon.
But recreation.
Have you been to council meeting lately?
Wilden was going to start a seahorse zoo in Utah Lake.
Yeah. Dump them in.
We do have Zions Bank here, as well as Japheth McGee with Zions Bank, and Randy Larson here with Gilmore Bell, if you have any questions on this. Kevin's also here as well, he's an expert on this.
Councilman Wilden?
You know, the one thing that I appreciate this, I think it helped me realize this is a statement from Councilman McComber a couple weeks ago, I think, where you were talking about, you know, we really do have a lot of great facilities and different things like that we see residents and events like, you know, Saratoga Splash and the fireworks. We have a lot of residents, non-residents is what I meant to say, that come into our city, that they enjoy these type of things. And we're becoming really a sales tax hub for this part of Utah County with all the development we have. And I just think this is a tool to help pay from outside. I know like residents will pay for some of it too. We're talking about 0.1%, but it's an optional. They don't have to shop in our city, and it'll help pay not just our residents, but everyone else that comes through the city to.
All of our neighboring cities
Yeah.
are doing it,
Yeah.
right?
And they'll come here and help pay for the facilities, not necessarily facilities, but events and parks and everything that they're enjoying where we don't charge a fee. But then some of our residents will go to Lehigh and other places and pay their RAP tax and go ahead and support their facilities, but not ours.
Stephen, if I could point out, we're already doing that. We're already helping to pay for recreation in other communities. Whenever we shop in those communities, they're collecting the sales tax off of us.
Yep.
Okay, Councilman McComber?
That was going to be my comment, is that all of the neighboring cities, we pay it. So, you know, when we're going to the Lehigh Rodeo Days and we're going to go shop at Lehigh stores, we're helping to pay for Lehigh Rodeo Days. Right now, people come to Saratoga Springs, they shop at Smith's, they, you know, get a burger, and they don't help in Saratoga Springs, but they're impacting our roads, our, you know, our parks, our community. And so it will allow us to be able to use some of those funds. Like, these would have to be dedicated to the Recreation Arts Fund, but it'll allow us to free up some of the other general fund money to help us in the other areas, road improvements, things like that, from the general fund. But I also want to point out that this is, I think, a huge addition to, like, we hear people saying they would love to have an outdoor amphitheater for their kids, because right now we'll pay Lehigh High School, we'll pay other places to have our concerts and things. People could rent that facility. This is the kind of thing that will help make that happen. If we didn't do something like this, it's going to be much longer in the making. This money can also help towards the library, a lot of library activities. This is the kind of money that goes towards that. This also would help recreation. I mean, we're bursting at the seams. Baseball this year, we maxed out. We have, next year, we're going to have to probably not allow other cities to come and use and do our rec in our city, because Saratoga Springs residents are going to get first priority. So we really just need to, you know, look at this as an opportunity, as a funding source that I love the fact that it's dedicated. It has to be used for recreation. So when people are voting on this and they are reading the things on the information on the pros and the cons on the ballot, they're going to see that it has to. It's not like a city council can do this and then take the money and then go do it for some pet project. This has to go towards those really important things that create a community. People love Neptune Park. People love Patriot Park. People love Shea Park. But those things cost a lot of money. And this will be a really great opportunity for us to get more things like that and to enhance the ones we have. Thank you, Mayor.
Do you have anything, Councilman Podeska?
Yeah, I'd just like to second what's already been said and just add that these projects are going to be built whether now or in the future, and that cost is on the residents. So any time that there's opportunity to have those funds shared with the users, I'm in favor of that. And so I see this as being, it's not a huge amount that is collected from outside non-residents, but it's a help. And so anything that will take the burden off of 100% off the residents, I'm in favor for. So that's all my comments.
Yeah. Okay.
Councilmember Porter?
Councilman Porter?
I would just echo some of the comments made to the fact that this is a discretionary tax where people can choose whether or not they're going to support it by spending in Saratoga Springs. And as well as the projects that will be funded by this are projects that I see as benefiting all residents. To Councilman Podesta's point, all, and even all the users, those people that live outside our city will also be paying into the system that they use.
Councilman Wilden?
I'm just going to make fun of myself a little bit here because we're all talking about, especially me, like we're passing a tax rate change today, and we're not. Even though we think it's a good idea, the residents are going to need to decide. I know you guys know this, but I'm saying this. Sorry, I'm looking at you. I don't know why. I'll look at Kevin. Don't look back, though. It's easier. No, I mean, the residents are going to have to decide whether or not it passes, regardless if we think it's a good idea or not. I think that's great. So I'm just kind of making fun of myself. I had to remind myself, oh, yeah, we're not passing a tax. It's just whether or not this goes to the ballot.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve.
Oops. Turn on.
I move that we approve resolution providing for a special tax election to be held on November 8th, 2022, for the purpose of submitting to the qualified electors of Saratoga Springs, Utah, the question of a levy of a 0.1% sales and use tax to finance recreation, zoology, and so forth, providing for the posting of a notice of public hearing and approving the form of and the directing the posting of a notice of election in the ballot proposition and related matters, Resolution R22-49, dated today.
I have a first from Councilman McComber.
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilman Podesta. Any further discussion? Councilman Carn?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Podesta?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have business item 2, the resolution providing for a special bond election to be held on November 8, 2022 for not to exceed $70 million.
Mayor, I'll take this one as well, if that's okay.
Yes.
So in essence, what we're doing is similar to what we just did with the RAP tax. It establishing for a public hearing, a public process whereby we'll put it on the bond where the electors get to vote on this. One of the things that I think is kind of unique is that for those that haven't been watching regularly the council meetings, for a number of years, there have been many people that have been clamoring for recreation facilities and things of that nature. And while I think the community is somewhat divided on this issue, it really becomes a question of is it a ripe time for this discussion and for this vote to take place? And, there's those for and there's those against. And this is really to set the parameters for this. Now, $70 million is a large number. That's what the consultant has told us. We understand that number could go down. The interesting part about this is that this is the maximum parameter. And so if we, don't have the funding for it, we have 10 years to issue the bonds. And so if we don't want to spend $70 million, or if we choose we want to fund a portion of it a different way at some point in the future, we don't have to issue $70 million worth of bonds. We can issue less. The parameters on this would be $70 million as the max, as well as 25 years. So there's been some questions that have been brought up as to, well, the city will just continue to roll that debt out, or that debt won't expire. The way that this works is this will collect a certain amount. So if our bond payment is, say, $4 million in a year, then the tax rate will be adjusted so that we only collect that $4 million to pay that bond payment for that year. It's not like it will just generate extra income. It's not like that money will be used for anything other than this. It will be restricted and dedicated only to that. And then once the bonds are expired, that debt is expired. The council does not have the authority to reissue those bonds unless they go out for another general obligation bond from the people, or if they go through truth and taxation. But it's not as if this debt continues on in perpetuity, and I know there's been some conversation about that. It does set those parameters. We're giving some estimations in the preliminary numbers that we've got for you. We assume some broad things. One other thing to note is, as our population continues to grow, as I mentioned, the bond rate will be set to cover the debt coverage for that particular year. If we continue to grow like this, our population will continue to grow, and as our population grows, that amount that's collected from each home will go down because there will be additional properties, businesses, and others that will help to pay for that debt over time. So again, those are some mechanics that I've heard questions on and had some questions about. We'd be happy to answer any questions. Again, our position is one of neutrality as a city because we are putting this on the bond. Ours is merely to give the facts, very strictly follow the rules of what this would entail. And then really the question for you tonight is, do you feel like it's time to put this on the ballot? If so, this would be the mechanism where we would establish the public hearing on October 4th at 6 o'clock, and then have the public hearing, and then ultimately it would be on the ballot for the election. Again, we do have Zions and Gilmore Bell here if there's any technical questions related to that, but it's a divisive issue. We know that there's some for and against, and really the question is whether it's ripe for our community to have this debate.
Okay. Our bond counsel, do you mind sitting up here in case there's any questions that are addressed to you guys? And Councilman McComber?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I wanted to say how much I appreciated people coming and giving their comments at the public hearing portion. We don't respond during public hearing if you don't know the rules of the game. That's just sort of a rule. And so I thought you both did a wonderful job in laying out the details. I think that there's probably maybe a little bit of misinformation. And that's one of the big concerns. One of the things that I think is important is as part of this putting it on the ballot is the pro and the con for the measure is going to be very well vetted, very well outlined and defined so that the voters, when they're reading the ballot, will be able, if it goes on the ballot, will be able to read very clearly what the pros are, what the cons are, what the potential impact can be, the financial impact, et cetera. One of the major concerns I've had with the recreation, and I've been doing this a few years, is I hear this all the time, like, we want a rec center. We're just gonna do a ballot measure, a referendum, and we're gonna do it as residents. We're gonna go get the signatures and we're gonna do it. That scares me because as much as Prop 3 and 6 were great intention, they were very poorly written and it made it very difficult for the city. It made it hard to do any kind of enforcement and it really made it hard to actually support that decision that was made by the residents. And so by allowing a bond commission, having experts give us the details, having it, we'll be able to have it very well written, very well defined so that people can be more educated. Because if it's a referendum, they get to write that. We would, as a city being neutral, we would have residents write the pro and I guess residents write the con. But as the city is doing this potentially, we would be able to then make sure it's very well written for the pro and the con and be as neutral as possible. So that's one reason. The second, so I'm very worried about a referendum that could be very damaging because then we would be stuck with whatever amount. They could say $100 million. And if the residents voted yes, then that would be the parameters. One of the things that I think is really important to understand is that for me, as a member of the city council, I felt this was a decision that I wanted to send to the residents. I didn't want to make, because we could technically build a rec center as a council. I mean, we can build libraries, we can build lots of things. So we can do it. We've built parks. I just feel that this is really important that the residents, when there is this kind of tax increase, have a say in that decision. And then for me personally, like from whether I'm for or against this, I live in a neighborhood with 2 pools. One of them is a mineral pool, and I have 2 gyms in my neighborhood I already pay, right? And so there will be people who have that situation. They'll have people who live in HOAs with pools, but then there'll be neighborhoods that don't. And so a lot of it's going to be really important that people communicate. And you mentioned you're the owner of Link. It's going to get you're going to get good business if it goes on the ballot. So you're going to get a lot of traffic. Both pros and cons. But at the same time, I think that it is a good conversation to have, that I think that it's time for the residents to be able to have this conversation so I can stop getting the people sending me emails begging me for a rec center and then people saying, please never a rec center because I already pay for it with my HOA. My last comment is that the maintenance ongoing costs, right? We have very good numbers we appreciate from Zions and from other groups that have helped us with this process. Because of the soaker pools, the natural spring soaker pool option that's going to be in this, potentially in this rec center, it has a larger draw. So we're not just looking at Saratoga Springs, some Eagle Mountain people who want to have access to a gym or a pool, a rec center versus going to Lehigh. We actually pull up to 100 miles because of that hot springs. People want, the lava hot springs, which isn't even going to be close to as nice as what we'll have potentially in this rec center if it gets passed, they come from 200 miles to go to that lava hot springs. So that will help. And what we've been shown in numbers is even by as early as I believe it was year 2 or 3, that we were actually in the black already, which is very rare for a rec center. Normally, it can take a decade or 2 to get enough population to cover the costs of a rec center. But because of that unique draw, and Saratoga Springs was named because of these hot springs, so the name is going to help, I think, from a marketing perspective, that people can come and enjoy these soaker pools that are clean and not disgusting like the one that people use that's over by the lake. But a lot of people come. Every time I run, I see at least a dozen or 2 dozen cars parked there to use the mud pool that's our current hot spring in the city. So I just, again, I've weighed a lot of thought on this, and I personally, the reason why I'm voting the way I'll be voting today is I believe that it's time for the residents to be able to, as a whole, decide if this is the right time for them to have a rec center. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councilman Podeska.
Yeah, thank you. Mark, with your comment on the bond that we have up to 10 years to spend that, is that my understanding then is that if the residents pass this, we can wait for inflations to drop or decline, building costs to go down, to then pull the trigger on construction, right?
You bet. And like I said earlier, it's a parameter. So we're saying the max you can spend is 70 million on bonds.
Yeah.
With these bonds, and the max time that you can bond for is 25 years. And so we're constricting that. These technically by law could go out 40 years, but again, there's a lot of interest that you start paying if you extend those that long. But yeah, to your point, absolutely, we can wait for timing. Obviously, there's going to need to be a public process of trying to help decide what it needs to look like, what it should be, probably some, community engagement and things of that nature. We know a big box, if you would. This is what some of the residents said they would like in the surveys and stuff. So there's a lot of ground that's going to need to get covered before you're probably ready to issue the bonds and ready to actually begin.
Right, so regardless of waiting for the economics to change, we still have like a year and a half or so of just planning and design work before
Probably, yeah.
the bond is even used. Okay. And so that's kind of, I appreciate Debbie coming and sharing her concerns, because that was some of mine throughout, as we kind of got closer to this process, is we've been discussing rec centers for quite some time and going through designs and surveys and things like that. And so as we're getting closer, then all of a sudden inflation hits. And so, yeah, the big question is like, oh, yeah, is this the right time? But I do like the addition that we don't have to spend that right if the residents pass it right away. And so, and to Michael's comment earlier, I also agree that the fact that this is such a huge bond, that even though the city council does have the power to just pass that bond without the residents' input, I agree with putting on the ballot for the residents to have that voice, because we do hear a lot of residents saying that they want this rec center, as well as, like Mark was saying, that it's fairly divided on ones that don't. And so I think that's beneficial for the residents to have a say individually on that. That's all the comments I have.
Councilman Karn?
I'm the new guy on the block, but we've been talking about this since I came on the council. Just some background. for people. We've been looking at this since I've been on the council. We actually went and toured rec centers around the state a couple years ago, saw what was successful, what wasn't, what they're doing to make it work, what they're not, why they fall deficient in some areas. This isn't something we've just thrown out there, right? We've done a lot of homework, a lot of research. I really appreciate the fact that I've been able to have good, thought-out conversations with my fellow council members at times on this issue. Even though we may disagree on things, it's been great to be in a political environment and have respectful conversations with people. I've talked with many residents on this issue. You know, the 70 million number is not just a number we made up as a council or as a city staff. Just so people know, we did go out and hire a consulting firm who went out and looked at other recreation centers in the state as well as outside the state. They looked at the recreation needs of our citizens and the recreation wants and what's not being serviced today. And that's where these recommendations came from, on seeing how we can better as a city serve our population. That said, I have my opinions on what our needs are as a city going forward and where I think we should be putting our focus, and what I feel is our responsibility as representative government. And so that's how I'll be basing my vote tonight.
Councilman Wilden?
You just turned it off.
That's good.
Oh, well, you don't want to hear from me, Mayor.
You're done.
No, I appreciate all the comments that's been made. I'll say, I've been with the city almost 9 years on the council, and then 5 years on the finance committee before then, 14 years. So what I've seen from the council while I've been on it and the finance committee, we've been pretty unified of, we're not going to pass this as a council. Not talking about putting it on the ballot, but as a council, we're not going to commit to, 14 years ago, it would have probably been 20 million. Now it's 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. But, the city has changed. The dynamics have changed. And what Councilman McComber stated earlier, it's what I will say, a real significant risk to the residents of the city to have a ballot or a resident-pushed initiative. Because they, like you said, could go out and put anything out there, and it's really not that difficult to get something on the ballot. I could get my 5 kids, because I'm relatively knowledgeable on how things work. I could spin some stories, and within 3 days, I'd have the signature and have this on a ballot and have the biggest piece of crap written thing that ever, I shouldn't say that on record.
You got it from YouTube, right?
Biggest nonsensical item, that's better than a big piece of crap. But big nonsensical item on the ballot. Yeah, very biased that would get on the ballot and could pass. I mean, if you're knowledgeable, you can do that. And so we have, Councilman Carn, you said we've been talking about this for 2 years. You're right. We've been talking about it, though, for 12 years before that and probably for a long time. And if this was put up to a vote, council, are you going to pass this bond right now? I'd say no. Because to me, this falls within the wants, but I want something in front of the residents that can make a decision that's well-informed, that's not a ballot initiative from the residents, so they actually know this could be a significant cost, a real cost. And if it were to get on the ballot and were to get passed, I would actually be really opposed to doing anything with it the next couple of years, because interest rates, it's funny, we say they're high. They're not, but they are high compared to zero, where we've been for many years. And right now, we're at the front of an end of a recession. If you follow the bond markets, the 25, 30-year treasuries, they're actually pricing in declines or at least no more increases. So and it's typically accurate. People that are bidding on these things are much smarter than I am, follow the market much closer. Interest rates are going to go down. And I would imagine building supplies are going to go down, demand's going to go down for these different type of things. And so we have the ability, if it were to pass, to, I wouldn't say sit on this, but be strategic about it. And then we could go back and evaluate, well, they really do want a rec center, but the city is not in a fiscal position or our residents to do 70 million. Maybe it's 50, whatever. I'm not going to throw numbers out there. I don't want to be quoted, but could be significantly less. And of course, things can always go up. I don't have a magic 8-ball, but all the economic indicators show the opposite direction. So is now a good time to pass a bond? No, but is now the good time to have a conversation to think about over the next 10 years if we have to do this? Yes, because it gives us the leeway to strategically plan based upon where the economy is going, demand and supplies. So now is a good time to have that conversation. Not a good time to pass a bond, but a good time to have that conversation. So, I mean, that's basically on my, rationales behind my vote is we need to have that conversation, and either if it doesn't pass, then we're done having the conversation, at least probably for, 10 years? Until someone else does a ballot initiative, but it's not going to come from the council. And if it gets on the ballot and does pass, then it gives us an opportunity to be very strategic and plan over the next 10 years. At what point, what are some appropriate triggers? Where do we want to see the economy, the interest rates, and building supply and demands at that point? Because 70 million, I'm not in favor, but I almost called you councilman. Sorry, that would be an offense.
Your apology is accepted.
Auditor Christensen, that's even worse because I used to be an auditor and he makes fun of me. Sewer man, is that better? Anyway, I don't know where I was going with this, but the point, as you said before, it's just putting some parameters so that we don't get trapped into something higher or larger.
You're like my favorite person.
He prefers sanitation engineer Christensen.
So for those, I'm not calling him a sewer man. He just really loves to talk about sewers. So don't put that in the minutes, that part, please. That's or where I said that's a load of crap or whatever. So okay, thank you.
It's on the recording though. I always go forward.
For the
And let the record show that his degree came from YouTube and Facebook.
yeah, my engineering degree. So.
Councilman Porter.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I'm in a noisy location. Apologize for any background noise. I appreciate the comments of Councilman Wilden and Councilman McComber. I agree with some of those, specifically that the freedom to have a conversation around a bond issue that could be strategically timed, as well as something that has been looked at and well thought out. I agree with those sentiments. I've struggled a lot as this has come closer, like I believe everyone on the council probably has. I guess what has come down to me is the deciding factor in how I will vote is similar to, as I mentioned with the RAP tax. I felt that's something that is both discretionary, and that is something that will benefit all of the citizens of Saratoga Springs. In the instance of this bond issue, my primary concern is that it is, if passed by the residents, it will apply to everybody. And that even though everyone will be paying some portion of the bond issue for the fees associated with that, not everyone will have use without paying an additional fee on top of the facility. And so those are the concerns that have educated my decision today.
Okay. Councilman McComber, you had an additional comment?
I did, and I'm trying to remember. One of the things that I think is important, because obviously we have people here in the public, and I believe probably will have people online. This is a pretty important topic. People are interested in it. At least I had some emails come in. Is our recreation director did also present to us, there's real concerns with being able to continue to further programs to support the residents, the youth, and even adults in Saratoga Springs. The basketball courts are very well needed. We are at the mercy of the schools. We've had schools say we are no longer allowed to use their school for basketball, for junior jazz, and these will definitely help that. We've not had any kind of adult basketball program in the city of any real consequence. It's been very minimal, and this would, again, allow for some of that. So I think that. And then not only that, but even just like the swimming, we will definitely charge Alpine School District if there is a pool that it gets passed, and there is a pool in there, a lap pool. But that is a real miss in our city. The youth at Westlake High School have to travel upwards of 40 to 45 minutes in the morning to get to a lap pool, who are on the swim team. And so, again, it's trying to meet as many needs of as many people as possible. And some of these things would be met by this. And again, I think it allows for a vote. For me, it allows people to be able to have that conversation. But that is another major thing that went into my decision-making was I believe a city that recreation, that rec kind of sporting and other opportunities is such an important part to making a community. It also helps reduce crime in a city. It also helps reduce a lot of other things that I won't get into now, but there's been a lot of studies around this, and having a good central location for the recreation in the city, I think, could be of real value as one of the other things that went into my mind to having this go towards the residents.
Before I call for a motion, just some of my thoughts on it. I think there's a need for recreation in the community. I do have concerns, as Councilman Wilden stated, we've got 10 years to pass the bond, but anybody can do a resolution. Okay, we got 10 years to pass a bond, but what stops residents from next year demanding it's done next year? We've got a very now society. Once the bond is approved, what stops that from happening? And we half-bake a project. It kind of reminds me of my kids when they get a little bit of money in their pocket, they hurry and run to spend it because they got the money now. So I have concerns with that portion of it. The other concern I have is with the for and against statements. Definitely would like those to be reviewed by the council before they're put out if this were to pass tonight, so that we can have the information. Because in a roundabout ways, Councilman Porter, I think you kind of led to was, the RAP tax is discretionary and you can choose to shop here or not. This is taxing your neighbor whether or not you're using it. Councilman Commerce got 2 pools and a rec in his HOA and he's paying for it. He may or may not want another one, but who's to say somebody in Fox Hollow should indebt him that way? And so, it's very emotional on both sides for that, but I definitely think that if this were to pass, that those for and against statements need to be very representative of both sides of the argument so that voters can understand. Voters who have not been involved in the city until yesterday or the day before the election have the information at their fingertips to make an educated decision on this issue. So as Councilman Carnes said, I have leanings my way and thoughts politically on this with taxing neighbors, but I don't have a vote on this one. Kevin, you had a comment?
I just wanted to mention really quickly, just in reviewing several different statutes, including one that basically prohibits the council from spending public funds to actually argue in favor of a proposition. What our approach would be, and it sounds like the council wants us to draft some arguments, we're just going to strictly limit it to presenting factual information only.
Yep. Perfect.
And not advocate for it, because that is not what we want to do. But the statute does, so there is one statute that says you have to have, they call it arguments for, they're not really arguments for, it's factual information. That's what we want to present to the public.
The for and against, right? We're not mailing campaign flyers, things out. That's individuals if they so choose to be politically involved.
And like just factual information in favor.
Okay.
I don't even want to call it in favor. It's just factual information about the ballot.
So if the rec centers for Wilden PAC wanted to be involved,
No.
they could. Okay. Councilman Carn, you had a follow-up?
No,
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Approve resolution providing for a special bond election to be held on November 8, 2022 for the purpose of submitting to the qualified electors of Saratoga Springs, Utah, a proposition regarding the issuance of not to exceed $70 million general obligation bonds to finance all or a portion of the costs of constructing and equipping recreational facilities of every kind allowed by Utah code as listed in the agenda with Saratoga Springs. Providing for the posting of a notice of public hearing, approving the form of and directing the posting of a notice of election and the ballot proposition and related matters. Resolution R22-50 dated today.
I'll second.
I have a first from Councilman McComber, a second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion from the council? Councilman Podeska?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Karn?
Nay.
Porter?
You're on mute.
Won't unmute. Nay.
Nay. Okay, motion carries 3-2. We'll go forward with that. I think this is kind of a unique situation where politics plays, because I think out of 6 of us, we probably got a 50-50 split on this. So, okay. Appreciate that. Appreciate staff's time. Zions, thanks for taking your time to sit here and listen. Do we have need for closed session this evening?
We do not, Mayor.
Okay, then I will adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, the other thing I forgot was senior center. All right. We don't have any of that.